Welcome to the Effective Negotiations at All Levels program presented by Wake Invest in Women. My name is Jackie Terry Hughes. I am the co-chair of this group, and I am absolutely delighted to be here. I want to thank the Raleigh Chamber for organizing this program and keeping it up despite the pandemic and despite the challenges that we're all facing right now. Wake Invest in Women is a private, public, and nonprofit collaboration strategically focused on closing the gender wage gap in Wake County. One of the things we've been doing to focus on this is creating and collecting and gathering appropriate partners from across the county, both in academia, from corporate environment, from the public environment, from the state, from Wake County, from Wake Tech, literally just dozens of different shareholders together, strategically focused on one end goal, and that is to end the gender wage gap in Wake County and end the occupation gaps in Wake County. And we're really excited about this initiative and this program. The group's initial focus is on science, technology, engineering, math, otherwise known as STEM, and STEM-adjacent fields and occupations. The reason we're focusing on STEM is because our research has shown that Wake County has a sizable pay gap in this occupation and in these fields for women. In addition, we know that Wake County has a number of available positions. We collectively thought that this would be an excellent opportunity to focus like a laser at this issue and try to get more women into STEM and more women rising within the field. We are working closely with Wake Tech Community College in creating apprenticeships in areas historically predominated by women. We're working to share the information about these apprenticeships out with our community partners to ensure that every woman out there that has an interest in this field has an opportunity to potentially join our apprenticeship. We are also conducting research on behalf of NC State and RTI into the numerous causes behind the gender pay gap. That research has been really informative and quite insightful, and from that research we are gathering and creating best practices that we hope to share out with this community so that all of us collectively can work together towards ending the gender pay gap. We have also created the Wake Invest in Women Community Challenge, and we would absolutely love your assistance. This community challenge is available for private and public partnerships. And basically what we're doing is providing the tools to these organizations in order to assess themselves, to basically take a look inside and assess how transparent and how equitable their processes are with respect to negotiation and, most importantly, with respect to pay. We invite all of you to join us on this community challenge because this is going to be a collective effort if we are going to move this needle. And I know we can do it, and I would love for you to join us. We want to help companies retain their female employees throughout all levels of the organization. It is not simply enough to get a female through the doors, hired as an entry level. We want companies to understand the importance of retaining that talent, giving women employees the skills that they need to rise vertically within the organization, and most importantly, to become effective leaders for their organization going forward. And that's why we're recruiting for this Wake Invest in Women Community Challenge. We believe that we can help provide these companies the tools they need to get the job done, to put that transparency and that equity lens within their own businesses, in the privacy of their own businesses, to help elevate us all. If any of this sounds exciting to you, we need your help and we would love you to join us. Again, this is a collaboration of public, private, and nonprofit partnerships, and we absolutely need your help. Please reach out to us to try to connect because we have many opportunities for organizations such as yours, whether on an individual basis or on a large entity basis, and would love to be working with you together. I am really excited about today's negotiation program. First up, you'll hear from Casey Ashton, the Executive Director of Wake Invest in Women. Casey's going to share some research highlights that I mentioned earlier from our ongoing gender wage gap research. She's also going to dispel some common negotiation myths for you. Next up, you'll hear from Tamara Pierce at Cree. Tamara's going to talk about some effective practical tips for negotiating your first job, maybe negotiating your lateral move, or if you're new or coming back to the workforce after a gap, how to negotiate those typical or different types of challenges. Next, you'll hear from Marjorie Williamson. She is the Senior VP HR Operations at RTI, and we're excited to have her. She's going to speak about how to negotiate for things other than pay, a really important topic that I think is often overlooked in these negotiation sessions. So that should be really informative and interesting. And finally, my friend Danya Perry is going to take us home and talk about practical tips that companies can use now to bring more equity into the negotiation space. All of these folks are members of the Wake Invest in Women, and we're all sort of strategically focused on the same goal. I am delighted that you're here. I hope this program is both informative for you and lends you some practicality that you can take away after the session is done. I thank you for joining us. I thank you for this program. Feel free, if you have any interest in joining Wake Invest in Women, to find me on LinkedIn at Jackie Terry Hughes. My law firm is JTH Law Firm. I so appreciate your time. Thank you and have a great day. Enjoy the program.
Hello, and thank you for being with us today. My name is Casey Ashton, and I am the director of Wake Invest in Women. A large part of the work that we do revolves around doing research around the gender, wage, and participation gaps in Wake County, and then utilizing that data to help create strategies for companies and individuals to be able to work towards closing those gaps. Our most current research has found that men's wages are significantly higher than their female counterparts across all occupations except for STEM skilled technical, in other words, vocational or trade occupations. We've also found that hourly wages for white and Asian men are highest, and when we compare against race and ethnicity, Black, African American, and Hispanic men and women are at the lowest in hourly wages. And finally, STEM males, men working in STEM fields, have the highest earnings across all occupations in Wake County. As a workforce development initiative, we are actively working with companies and organizations to create long-term systemic change in Wake County. But long-term change takes time, and we know that we also need to be working at the individual level, giving you, the participants here today, the opportunity to gain skills and knowledge on how to negotiate at all levels so that you can work on increasing your pay, which has a long-term, widespread impact on that gender wage gap. So the more you feel comfortable being able to negotiate, the better. So to begin with, let's address a few common myths that many of you have probably heard related to women and their ability to negotiate. Myth number one, women don't negotiate. Conventional wisdom suggests that women don't negotiate because they don't feel confident or they don't have the skills. Therefore, they don't ask and just accept the first offer that they're given, which may lead to leaving money on the table. The 2018 Women in the Workplace report, based on 4 years of research, has actually found that women do in fact negotiate at the same rate as their counterparts, their male counterparts. Black and Latina women, in fact, negotiate at the same rate or higher than their white male and female counterparts. A 2017 article by Schneider found that one of the reasons that this myth persists is that a lot of the studies that look at gender and negotiation are studying undergraduate students or young graduate students. Students who don't necessarily have as much life experience as those who are in the workforce and negotiating. It's important to remember when we're thinking about negotiation is that it's not happening in a lab and that the world is far more nuanced than that lab experience. Which leads us to myth number two, that women don't have the right skills to negotiate. And again, this comes back to that idea of confidence and that women are afraid to be assertive. It's also true that women may find that they're facing a double-edged sword if they do try to be assertive, in that they are then viewed as being pushy or bossy. Newer research calls this idea into question, however. This research suggests that people do in fact need more than being assertive to be successful in their negotiations. Anyone coming into negotiations who is overly assertive or demanding is probably not going to see the results that they want. As with all things, negotiations are nuanced, and it's important to remember that we all have more skills than just being assertive. Schneider in 2012 discussed that to be a successful negotiator, one needs to have other skills, including empathy, flexibility, and social intuition to be able to read the room. As we move into this next section of the presentation, it's important to remember that how we communicate in negotiation is what is most important. So today's presentation is going to give you those skills and tips to make you a better negotiator. If you'd like to continue the conversation, please feel free to reach out to me. You can find me on LinkedIn at Casey Ashton EdD. You can also email me at kjashton@waketech.edu. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Tamara Pierce. I am the Manager of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for Cree-Wolfspeed in Durham, North Carolina. I'm here today to share 5 tips on how to effectively negotiate your salary when starting a new job. I first want to begin with it is absolutely okay to negotiate your salary. In fact, a lot of employers expect when extending offers to candidates that you will negotiate. A book by Linda Babcock reveals that only 7% of women attempt to negotiate their salary for their first job. 7% compared to 57% of men. And of those that negotiated their salaries, they were actually able to get a 7% on average increase in the negotiated rate. So you may think that 7% doesn't sound like a lot, but if you think for an example, if you are offered a $100,000 salary and your coworker negotiated a $107,000 salary, barring everything is the same throughout your career, you receive the same bonus, merit, promotion, you would have to work 8 years longer to be as wealthy as your coworker at the time of retirement. So again, I'll repeat that. You would have to work 8 years longer to be as wealthy as your coworker at the time of retirement. So if you're like me, you're not trying to work any longer than you have to. So this is why it's important to negotiate your salary. So tip number 1, know your worth. There are sites like Glassdoor and PayScale where you can actually look up salaries for the prospective jobs. These sites give you the average pay by industry, by role, and by geography. So when you're walking into these salary negotiations, have this data ready so that you can leverage that as a tool during the conversation. Typically, organizations will have salaries starting around the 50th percentile, market reference range, or midpoint. You'll see all of these terms used simultaneously or interchangeably on those websites. And basically what that is saying is that 50% of like industries have starting salaries in this range. You'll see ranges at the 25th, which is sort of the minimum, the 50th, which is the midpoint, and the maximum, which is around 75 to 100. For entry-level jobs, I would recommend that you come in at a salary range a little bit above the midpoint, market reference range, or the 50th percentile. This will allow you to have a little wiggle room in negotiating your salary. If you are changing careers, if you are re-entering the workforce, I would recommend you to come in sort of at the higher end of the range, so around the 60th to 75th percentile, because that will allow you to leverage your transferable skills that translate into experience in negotiating those salaries. But again, ensure that you're walking in the door, knowing your worth, knowing what the market reference ranges are for those salaries so that you be able to effectively negotiate. Tip number 2, understand the person that's at the negotiation table. People negotiate, not companies. So in other words, what I mean by this is if you're talking to the HR representative or the recruiter in the negotiation discussion, the recruiter or HR representative may be more apt to know details, intricate details of the offer, such as in addition to the base salary, the bonus structure, the sign-on bonus, the stock options, where you can get more of a holistic or total picture of the entire offer. Whereas if you're negotiating with the hiring manager, your future boss, or prospective manager, they may be only focused on the base salary and may not have some of the other information such as the sign-on bonus, the stock options, etc. So just ensure that when you are at the negotiation table, you understand who you're talking to so you can come from that perspective. Because a hiring manager you would have a direct effect on their team, they may be able to leverage knowledge that the HR manager or the recruiter doesn't have and going to bat for a salary expectation. Again, know who's at the negotiating table. So this brings me to tip number 3. Be prepared to ask the tough questions. When you're negotiating salaries, the organization that you're looking to work with will ask you, Do you have any other offers? If we extend this offer to you tomorrow, will you be ready to accept? Are we your top choice in your offer process or in the salary and the job seeking process? So be prepared to answer those questions, right? The one question, besides other questions in the interview process, that is the most sensitive, and a lot of candidates and even employers don't like asking is, what are your salary expectations? From the candidate perspective, you feel sometimes as though you're going to price yourself out of the job, or you feel like you're not going to ask for enough at the beginning. From the employer perspective, when we're trying to get that salary expectation, just ensure that we are aligned with your expectations, or we can have that conversation earlier in the process when we're not. Not being prepared to answer these tough questions can sometimes make your answers sound evasive, or it could lead to a dishonest answer, right? That is absolutely what you don't want to do. Be prepared to answer those questions with honest answers and truthful answers, right? We learned early in our life that honesty is the best policy. So being prepared to have answers to those tough questions will make it easier down the road, even if you take the job, right? Tip number 4 is ask for your negotiation requirements all together, so simultaneously versus in a series, right? This isn't Netflix. So what I mean by that is, if you have some considerations not only in regards to your base salary, or maybe the bonus structure, or maybe the stock options that you're being offered, don't ask your recruiter or your HR or the HR manager or the hiring manager to negotiate the base salary first, and then when they come back to you with that information, then you say, oh, now let's focus on the stock options. Oh, and then now let's focus on the sign-on bonus, right? So make sure that you have a holistic picture of your ask. Make sure that you're asking for all of these details to be negotiated at the same time. And additionally, I would also recommend that you prioritize those points of the offer that are most important to you. So if the base salary is most important, then and then you will look at your stock options and maybe the sign-on bonus. Make sure you indicate and communicate that priority to the person that you're negotiating your salary with. So even if they can't meet all 4 of your salary requirements, if they can meet 2, they can come to the table with the 2 that are most important to you. Not doing that could lead to you starting back over to the drawing board of having to negotiate the entire offer. So again, ensure that when you're negotiating the salary, negotiate all points of the offer and not in a series. And last but certainly not least, my 5th tip on negotiating your salary for a new job is, don't negotiate just to negotiate, right? We all think we have these great negotiation skills. We like to walk into car dealerships and see a price on the car and just immediately go to, I'm going to talk this car dealer down $5,000. That should not be the case when you're negotiating a salary. Only true negotiate salary when it's not something that's meeting your expectation. It's okay to be happy with the salary that's offered. A lot of organizations will come to the table with the best offer. They're not trying to lowball you, for lack of a better term. They're actually coming with the best effective offer based off of experience, etc. So don't negotiate to negotiate, again, because this could lead to a negative impact further down the road. So let me recap my 5 tips for effectively negotiating your salary. Tip number 1, know your worth. Tip number 2, understand who's at the negotiating table. Tip number 3, be prepared to answer those tough questions like, will you accept this offer tomorrow if we extend it to you? Tip number 4, be prepared to negotiate all points of the offer details and together, not in a series. And then finally, tip number 5, don't negotiate just to negotiate. Ensure that you are negotiating because it is a point that you want in order to take the job. So with that, I thank you for your time. Hopefully these tips help you and to help you land that next job and effectively negotiate your salary. And please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I am Tamara Pierce, PHR, SHRM CP. But with that, go get 'em. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Marjorie Williamson. I'm very happy to be with you today. I am a certified compensation professional through an organization called World at Work, whose mission it is to help professionals create compelling total rewards packages for an employee experience that's meaningful. I also have the privilege of being on the faculty of World at Work so that I can help up-and-coming total rewards professionals as they progress in their careers. I have experience as a compensation consultant, but have spent most of my career as a practitioner. My experience spans several industries, and I am currently leading global total rewards for RTI International, which is an independent, nonprofit research institute with almost 6,000 employees and working in over 50 countries. I am also honored to be on the steering committee of the Wake Invests in Women initiative, whose mission it is to close the gender wage and occupation gaps in Wake County with a focus on STEM and STEM-related occupations and industries. I have been on both sides of the negotiating table throughout my career, and have spoken with many women about their experiences in negotiating not only upon hire, but while they are working within their organizations. Today, I'm going to focus on the negotiation that occurs once you've been working with an organization for a while. Negotiating with your employer can take many forms, and the total rewards that you choose to negotiate are dependent upon your own special circumstances and the circumstances of your family. There are often elements of total rewards that we may not think of when we consider our total rewards packages. For example, my mother, who was an executive who was considerably younger than my father, chose to negotiate for additional vacation instead of salary increases so that she could spend more time with him while he was home. I've also negotiated flexible schedule for myself after having my firstborn child. I negotiated to work 30 instead of 40 hours a week so that I could spend more time with my newborn baby while still remaining in the workforce. Later in my career, I negotiated to telecommute from home 7 out of 10 days because my employer was based in Philadelphia and I was living in North Carolina. It was an unusual circumstance, but both my employer and I were looking for a win-win. We were able to come to an agreement and have it work for both of us. The elements listed here are all part of your total rewards package that you may be able to negotiate. Today, I am going to focus on techniques that you can use to negotiate salary and promotions, but the concepts that will be presented here will also apply to other total rewards elements. The compensation philosophy is what drives salary increase decisions in most organizations. Similarly, most organizations have these 3 tenets as part of their compensation philosophy: to pay externally competitively, to pay internally equitably, and to pay for performance. So number 1, pay externally competitively. This enables organizations to attract candidates and to retain employees. Different organizations define competitively differently, but most would consider themselves competitive if they are paying at the median or the 50th percent of the market for a job as compared to your job within the labor market. There are also resources available to you so that you can learn through professional organizations, LinkedIn, and job postings what your comparator points are for your particular profession. The data that your organization provides is probably better data than what you can get on the internet, but it can be a starting point for you to gather information about competitive pay for your job. Number 2, pay internally equitably. Organizations want to ensure that the salaries reflect the appropriate level of education, experience, certifications, and strengths that each of the individual employees have. Finally, number 3, most organizations want to pay for performance. They target higher base salaries for employees who contribute to a greater extent to the success of the organization as compared to their peers. When you are negotiating for a salary increase, it is important that you do your homework and understand how your current pay compares to the market and to your peers, and how your performance compares to others in your organization. Most organizations share their salary ranges with employees. Your salary range may be a good indicator of your pay as compared to the market. Typically, the midpoint of the salary range is relatively reflective of the market for your job. However, additional research that you do through professional organizations, as I mentioned earlier, and LinkedIn may provide supplemental data that will help you in your salary negotiations. You may not be able to learn about the pay of your peers within the same job at your organization. Most organizations want to protect the privacy of their staff who may not want their pay levels to be shared with their peers. As you assess how you compare your pay to your peers, consider education, experience level, and strengths that you may have as compared to your peers. And finally, pay for performance is key. Did you meet or exceed your deadlines? Is your work of a high quality? Do you do whatever you can to support your peers? Different organizations define performance differently, but attaining your goals and providing high quality work while playing nice in the sandbox with your colleagues are all differentiators that may help you in your negotiations with your salary. In the end, you want your manager to understand the value that you bring to the role and be compelled that they are paying you fairly as compared to the market and to your peers. If you are performing at a higher level than your peers, feel confident about your contributions. Request the salary that you believe is reasonable for the contributions you make. It is always recommended that you think about how this will not only benefit you. You want a salary increase decision that your employer makes that will be reflective of the competitive market and the philosophy of the compensation plan in your organization. The most important elements of negotiating for a promotion are whether or not your role has expanded since you were hired or since you first entered into your current role, and whether the work you are now doing aligns with employees' work at the next higher level in the organization. That is what your leadership team will be examining when they decide whether to promote you or not. Most often, promotions are the result of a higher level of work that is being done or is needed in the organization. Do you have a broader set of responsibilities? For example, has your role grown from regional to global? Have functions or systems been added to your role since you came into it? Are you expected to develop relationships and negotiate at a higher level either outside the organization or within your organization than when you currently started in your role? Has your staff grown? Do you have a larger accountability for mentoring and growing staff and a larger number in your organization? Does the scope of your role align with other jobs that are at a higher level within the organization? Importantly, is there a need for the higher level work in your organization? Once you have determined that the scope of your role has expanded, what are the negotiation skills that you can use to negotiate your promotion? Being prepared with facts and practicing your delivery will help you in the success of your promotion request. Also, knowing and specifically requesting the exact title and salary increase you are negotiating will contribute to your success. Many organizations have career ladders. Some organizations have managerial and technical career paths that you can choose once you are in the organization. You will want to study and have in-depth knowledge about that career ladder within your organization, and that will reflect whether you have done your homework. Once you understand the career ladder at your organization, you must decide what level you are requesting and how much of a salary increase you are requesting to go along with that promotion. I would encourage you to use the guidelines I previously presented regarding how to salary negotiate and discuss that as well with your promotional increase. Understand what the market pays for the next higher level. Also, know what your bottom line is. What will you do if your manager says that they don't think that you are ready for that promotion? Are you willing to stay in your current role and develop the skills that your manager says are necessary for you to be promoted? What will you do and what will your counteroffer be if your manager approves the promotion you have requested but does not approve the salary increase that you have requested? Know what your bottom line is. Approaching negotiations with a positive win-win attitude and data are true success predictors. Threatening and providing ultimatums to your employee rarely provide results that the employees are seeking, and they may hurt the relationship with you and your manager as well as the organization. As you think about what you want, whether it be a promotion, a salary increase, a flexible work schedule, a special telecommuting arrangement, or additional vacation, consider how your organization providing these things to you will benefit them. Sharing with your manager the true value you bring to the organization, along with aligning your expectations with the compensation philosophy of your organization, will bring you the greatest opportunities for success in your negotiations. In closing, I want to share with you a few resources that may help you and that you may find of value. There are many books, videos, blogs, and articles that can support your efforts as you learn to negotiate better. Please feel free to contact me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn address is shown on this slide. It has been my pleasure to talk with you.
My name is Donya Perry, Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusivity with the Raleigh Chamber, and also leader of the Triangle DEI Alliance. And our work has been focused on how do we help support our regional economy, focus in on and accelerate our diversity, equity, and inclusivity strategies. You know, our vision is that our region will be the most diverse, most equitable, and inclusive region in the country. And the only way that we can do that is truly by interrogating and really dismantling some of the structures that have really prohibited us from becoming more diverse, equitable, and inclusive. And one of the areas that we need to focus in on is pay equity in relationship to the women wage gap. And those are some of the strategies and some of the work that we need to do that will help support our efforts to become the most competitive region in the area. This is important for talent. This is important for us to be able to recruit and retain the most talented individuals within our country. So it's important for us to take a charge and really focus in on what needs to be done so that we can become a more equitable community and to really focus in on inclusive prosperity. Companies across our region have recognized that pay equity really truly gives us the competitive edge. It's not about an accomplishment, but it's about standard operations procedures. So when companies truly start to look at the strategies that they can employ to make sure that we recruit top talent and that we retain the best talent, we start to look at what are some practices in creating an equitable process in negotiations. Now let's look at some best practices and strategies that we've seen our companies use. One is eliminating salary history. And by eliminating salary history, it really focuses in on using the existing and current market rate. Another opportunity is also to just ban negotiations all across the board. That really takes out the subjectivity and really mitigates some of the bias in negotiations. It ensures that everybody gets an equal shot to get the same salary. Another strategy is to make equitable offers. And this actually leaves room for less negotiation. And one way that we can also look at that is by companies doing annual pay evaluations and assessments to ensure that the pay is commensurate to the actual work. And that actually provides an opportunity to ensure that, again, there's not a lot of subjectivity in the negotiations. And one of the last strategies that we like to encourage companies, and we've seen companies across the region employ, is by supporting and making women coming to negotiation table normal. Oftentimes we see, and historically we've seen this, where women that advocate for themselves, folks have tended to look at it as unfavorable. And sometimes that can impact, one, the negotiation, but then also their career. So we need to encourage women to advocate for themselves and to push back and applaud them for that, because we want to ensure that everybody gets their fair, equitable salary. So you've just gotten a small look at the strategies that our companies have employed to ensure pay equity. So I'm charging you right now to go back to your company, to have conversations about pay equity, to talk about the practices and the policies that are in place right now. Please understand that when we have an equitable pay for all, this makes our region way more competitive. This truly will create a more diverse and equitable and inclusive business community by simply looking at the practices that we have in place, looking at how can we assess them, and then evolving. It's all about continuous improvement. I am honored to be a part of this conversation, and I'm really honored to be a part of the process in finding a solution. I think in this process of creating a more diverse and equitable and inclusive community, it starts with asking questions. And so, again, thank you for allowing me to talk to you, to empower you to ask those questions. I am confident, truly confident, that we can accelerate and become the most diverse, equitable, and inclusive community in the country. Thank you. Take care.